name is Guillaume Evin. I'm originally from France, and I got in the US about 10 years ago. Studied architecture and then engineering back in France. Worked as an engineer, a structural engineer in Germany and in New York City for about 3 or 4 years, and then moved towards design at Bjarke Ingels Group in New York City, where I worked for about 7 or 8 years, and just moved in Arizona, where I work for 180 Degrees Design Build.
What key life experiences have formed who you are today?
My grandfather was a carpenter. No one else in my family was anywhere close to construction, but my grandfather was. I remember as a kid, like watching him. He was a carpenter, and he was also doing furniture in the winter. It's fascinating to see, like, first his wood shop was amazing, and then seeing him put things together with very simple material was always very inspiring. Kind of like took it on me to like do architecture. I really enjoy complex geometries. But my family was mostly scientific, so I had a lot of exposure to trying to analyze the world as it is around me constantly.
How did you become passionate and involved in architecture?
I really enjoyed drawing as a kid and or when I grew up. Having a family of scientists, I was also, well, first kind of like pressured to do something a little bit serious. I kind of found the middle ground of going to architecture being like, creative, but also having a lot of foundation in science and understanding how things are put together. And so one of my best friend, actually, his father was an architect, so I did a little high school internship there and started to see what it was about. I found this school in France that had the program to be architect and engineer, so that was kind of like the perfect middle ground to make me happy and make my family not too worried about where I was going.
What are your core values and how are they reflected in your practice?
I worked as an engineer in a German office, so very rigorous. And then at Bjarke Ingels Group, they have a very strong identity and also workflow and kind of way of thinking about design. And that really kind of shaped the way I think about it at this point.
What is your design process?
I definitely draw a lot by hand, and I love sketching, like at least at the very beginning. Then I start, doing simple massing in 3D. Tend to work the 3 dimension and the materiality at the same time. So it tends to start actually more in 3D, and then go for 2D for more like kind of rationalizing things, and of course for communicating with everyone.
How do you collaborate with other individuals to realize your impactful work?
Really communicate clearly what the intent is, and not trying to put too much information at once in whatever I share. Try to understand the position of other stakeholders on the project, translate your idea into the same idea but with their vocabulary.
How has Peter Zumthor's architectural ideas and buildings impacted your architectural practice?
I went on a trip with the team at Bjarke Ingels Group in Switzerland, and we saw a lot of Zumthor's work. And so for the first time, I saw the thermal valves, and I went back and actually where I proposed to my wife over there. So it has a big presence in my life, actually. There is kind of a simplicity to it, but like amazing richness in the use of materials and one formal idea and the material and how do they work together. It really speaks to me in terms of process and simplicity.
What are the biggest challenges you face?
Biggest challenges, I think, having moved to Arizona, like all jurisdictions have different rules and different processes in terms of filing project and going through permit and all that. So it's kind of like learning each time a different jargon and a different system. If there are elements in the mix that are a little bit more unpredictable, then it becomes difficult. So that's one thing I'm trying to wrap my head around now.
What advice would you give to a young student?
Don't think that people are going to resolve things for you. Try to be as curious as possible and constantly question why things are the way they are. Try to imagine like how things were thought through. And you're in this position of being an architect, but there are other people obviously working on project, and as much as possible, if you can put yourself in the shoes of engineers or clients or anyone else that may be on the project, and also have a little bit of empathy of what their process is about, so you can be very efficient in your collaboration.